जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन, यमुना तीरवनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी, गोपीजन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna to all the devotees who have come today for today's morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we will continue with our sequential progression of Srimad Bhagavatam. We have rapidly progressing, and we are already in the second canto. Have completed chapter 7. Today we'll move to chapter 8. But first we will start with the prayers to the parampara, asking permission. So as we do every time. So I will start with that. I'll share my screen first. Just 1 minute. Just hold on. Can you see my screen, Prabhuji's and Mataji's? Is it visible?
Not yet, Prabhuji. You have to share it.
Not yet, Prabhuji.
Okay, just 1 minute, Prabhu. Hold on.
Yes, Prabhuji. Now we can see.
You're seeing the main screen, no, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. The prayers.
You're seeing the prayers. Okay. Okay, Prabhu. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुम् उन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदाकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजतां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितां तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। Please recite with me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयम् उदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नन्दनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः पङ्कजनाभाय नमः पङ्कजनमालिने नमः पङ्कजनेत्राय नमस्ते पङ्कजाङ्ग्रहे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। नमो ब्राह्मण्य देवाय गो ब्राह्मण हिताय च जगद्धिताय कृष्णाय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निधि नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरम्। ओम अपवित्र पवित्रो वा सर्वास्तं ततोऽपि वा यस्मरेत् पुण्डरीकाक्षं स भयाभयन्तरं शुचिः श्रीविष्णु श्रीविष्णु श्रीविष्णु। Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, the display settings just reverse it because we are seeing presenter's view.
Oh, you're saying the presenter view, Prabhu? Okay. Just let me change it, Prabhu. 1 minute. Hold on, Prabhu. Is it okay now, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everybody. Dandavat Pranam to all the devotees who have come on this Sunday morning to listen to the most auspicious Srimad Bhagavatam. It's extremely important for us to regularly hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is a great opportunity for all of us. And I am very, very extremely grateful and thankful to His Grace Lilananda Prabhu and His Grace Praveen Prabhu, His Grace Subbarao Prabhu, and all other senior devotees to have given me this opportunity to share today's class. And what I'm doing is essentially I'm sharing what is already there, and all the seniors who have actually already spoken on the subject matter of all the matter that is there through all from our acharyas, from the book itself, from other senior devotees like Gauranga Darshan Prabhu. So all his references, and I'm just coming and reproducing it out here. if I do make any mistakes today, please do forgive me for that. I'll make it my humble attempt out here to share the second chapter, second canto, 8th chapter on questions by Parikshit Maharaj to my best of my ability. So before I start, I just thought I'll give as I'm normally doing my previous two classes also, I'll give a overview of the contents. It helps us to get some structure around the chapter itself. So there are 4 sections to it. The first section, it starts with Parikshit Maharaj inspiring Shukadev Goswami to speak Harikatha. The second section are the questions by Parikshit Maharaj himself. And the third section is on Parikshit inspiring Shukadev Goswami to speak. And the last one is Shukadev Goswami concludes. Now, it's a pretty familiar structure, and quite interestingly, I was sitting with my daughter and helping her for her exams. And they have the English compositions. And she was telling me that in the compositions, they have this particular structure, which they call a burger structure, which is, you have the bread on both the sides. In the middle, you have the patty. And you need to start your composition. That's what her teacher told her, was that you need to start your composition with a hook which interests the reader, right? And then you give the main material, and then you conclude by kind of summarizing and reminding the reader on what you're trying to get across. And that essentially gives a good composition. And when I was looking at the structure of this particular chapter, it just reminded I was able to connect it over there, wherein Parikshit Maharaj is also a very, one of the best students also is posing as in front of the spiritual master. And he's inspiring him to speak about Harikatha. There's nothing better than to speak about Harikatha. So he's inspiring him to first speak about it, and then he's leading him to what to speak about, which is the questions. And these questions actually, they form the basis of they're discussed throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam. From here it starts actually when Shukadev Goswami. So this is one of the most important chapters in the second canto. And then he concludes. And then finally the teacher is pleased and the teacher starts speaking. So in the previous class, we concluded in chapter 7. And here I just thought to maintain the continuity, we'll just quickly read through the translations of the last 2 texts, which lead to this particular chapter. Right. So in text number 52, he says, please describe the signs of Godhead with determination. So in chapter 7, it's the Brahmanarada Samvad that's happening, right? And 52 is saying, please describe the signs of Godhead with determination. It's an instruction to Narada Muni. Brahmaji is asking Narada to preach, and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Hari, the super soul of every living being and the summum bonum source of all energies. So here Brahmaji is asking Narada to preach about the signs of Godhead with determination and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service unto the personality of Godhead. So this is actually leading Parikshit Maharaj to want to know more, and that is forming the basis of this chapter 8, which is the questions. So Parikshit Maharaj wants to know more, where did Narada Muni preach? How did he preach? What did he preach? To whom did he preach? Whom did he meet? He's very, very curious now. And in text 53, he says the Lord's activities in association with his different energies should be described, appreciated, and heard in accordance with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord. So these 2 verses are prompting Parikshit Maharaj to now ask questions. So from the Brahmanarada Samvad, so the focus was there. Actually, looking at it in Srimad Bhagavatam, we see the camera is actually, it shifts in different places. You have the sages of Naimisharanya and Sutta Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj, and Sukadeva Goswami's conversation, and then you have other conversations also happening. So from the Brahmanarada Samvad is now it's over, and now chapter 8 has started. Now the focus of the camera has now come back to Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami. So as I had said, I'll request some particular Prabhuji, can you mute some participants? Or I don't know if I can do that. I see that.
Yeah, Prabhuji, I'll mute it and also make you co-host. Yes, sure.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhuji. So in verse numbers 1 to 6, as I said, Parikshit Maharaj is going to be inspiring Sukadeva Goswami to speak about Harikatha. And in the first 3 questions itself, he's showing his eagerness, his curiosity. He's asking about, Narada Muni's preaching exploits. He's asking about the Lord's auspicious, wonderful potencies. And then in verse number 3, he says that he wants to be helped so that he remembers Krishna at the time of death. He'll now segue into the first verse, and through this chapter I will recite some of the verses and some of them I'll stick to the translations. As I've done in the past sessions, Prabhujis and Matajis, what I will do is I will share some points and notes from the purport, but also from some other lectures. So that's why I've just called it as important points. Some of them are verbatim from the purport of Srila Prabhupada, and some of them are points that I've captured from other lectures that I have listened to. So verse number 1. Rajo Vacha Brahmana Chodito Brahman Gunakhyane Gunasya cha Yasmai Yasmai Yatha Praha Narado Deva Darshanaha. So the translation is, King Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak? So this is the first, inquiry, but also an inspiration from Parikshit Maharaj to Sukadeva Goswami. From the purport, some of the points that I captured, I'm just sharing that. So now Devarishi Narada was directly instructed by Brahmaji, who was also directly instructed by the Supreme Lord. And therefore, the instructions imparted by Narada to his various disciples are as good as those of the Supreme Lord. So next, who did Narada instruct? So he instructed Vyasadeva, and Shukadeva Goswami heard directly from Vyasadeva. And so the parampara has also come like that, in the parampara, that's the importance of the disciplic succession. And that's how we are also listening here, is through that disciplic succession. Vedic knowledge, it comes down only from the Lord by disciplic succession. It's a very important point. Please note that Vedic knowledge comes down from the Lord by disciplic succession, and this transcendental knowledge is distributed to the world by the descending process. And we are very fortunate to be in that disciplic succession over here. And as our disciples, as in the footsteps and who are following the path of our founding Acharya Srila Prabhupada, we have the fortune of listening to the Samala Purana in that disciplic succession. The Lord existed prior to the material creation, and therefore his transcendental name, quality, etc. do not represent any material quality. So here again, in the translation itself says, he says, transcendental qualities of the Lord who is without material qualities. One of the important words in this particular verse is agunasya. So Lord is described as aguna, or without any quality. But it actually does not mean that he has no quality. It is just that he has no material quality, such as modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, as the conditioned souls have. So we have this word, guna comes in many parts of Bhagavad Gita also, and it refers to the three modes of material nature, which is goodness, passion, and ignorance. But sometimes the Mayavadi philosophers also interpret this as quality and take it to be that Lord has no personal form, but that is not correct. So he is transcendental to all material conceptions, and thus he is described as aguna. So a very important point that we should keep. Apart from this, we need to keep in mind that there should be no difference between the knowledge that is imparted by the spiritual master and the knowledge that is imparted by the Lord. This is the actual test of the spiritual master. So whatever knowledge that is coming from the spiritual master has to be as it is. And that's what even we get from Srila Prabhupada. This is the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Move to the second verse. Etad veditam ichchami tatvam tattvavadambara hareradbhuta viryasya katha loka sumangalaha. The king said, I wish to know narrations concerning the Lord, who possesses wonderful potencies, are certainly auspicious for living beings in all planets. So Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the activities of the Supreme Lord, is auspicious for all living beings residing in every planet. One who takes it. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can you please go on mute, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna, Santosh Aditya Prabhu, please mute yourself. Santosh Aditya Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Please mute yourself, Prabhu.
Yeah, he's muted, Prabhu. Thank you, Giriraj Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yeah, so Srimad Bhagavatam is full of narrations of the activity of the Supreme Lord, is auspicious for all living beings. Please note that word Prabhuji and Matajis, all living beings residing in every planet. One who takes it as belonging to a particular sect is certainly mistaken. So this is not a sectarian text that is only meant for Vaishnavas, for example. A very important point that is not only coming through the verse but also in Prabhupada's purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is certainly a very dear scriptures for all the devotees of the Lord, but is auspicious even for the non-devotees. And here I was listening to Prabhuji from a Evolve Pune lecture, and he gave a very nice example of sugarcane juice. He said sugarcane juice is a luxury for a healthy person, but it is most beneficial for the person who is jaundiced. And that similarly, Srimad Bhagavatam, is of course very dear to the devotees of the Lord, but it is extremely beneficial even for the non-devotees. And that Krishna Katha, the third point is on Krishna Katha should be heard with devotion and attention from the right source. So if you look at the verse itself, Katha Loka Sumangala. Loka Sumangala is that's where it's saying it's auspicious for the whole world. Loka Sumangala. It's not sectarian. It's not Vaishnava Sumangala. It is Loka Sumangala. So why is this Srimad Bhagavatam very helpful to non-devotees? Anyone wants to just share a thought on it? Why is Srimad Bhagavatam even helpful to the non-devotees?
Maybe to understand the purpose of life, that
Of
they
course.
start the process of self-realization.
Yes, Prabhu. Absolutely, Prabhu. So it's a starting point, and as we are all conditioned souls, and we are all hovering under the spell of material energy of Maya, and Srimad Bhagavatam helps us get delivered from the clutches when we hear these narrations. But also, it's very important that there are some conditions for this hearing. So, Kinjan Priya Prabhu, you want to also share what are the two conditions or the three conditions? It's there actually, but if you might just want to share, that it's we should there when you are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam.
Oh, I don't remember exactly, but you should listen in not in a competitive mood or something like that. You should have the respect to the speaker.
Yes, Prabhu.
You should not.
Yes,
you should,
Prabhu.
you should not question for the sake of the questioning, but you should, it should question something like that. You should question
Yes, Prabhu.
for
Tadvidi
his
pranipatena
self-benefit.
pariprashnena sevaya. So, Krishna Katha, as I mentioned, Prabhu, should be heard with devotion and attention, but most importantly from the right source, which is representing the Lord by disciplic succession. As we already see in the previous verse itself, he says when Narada Muni is speaking, it's as good as the Lord is speaking. So the spiritual master coming down in disciplic succession, when he is speaking, it's as good as the Lord is speaking. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. We'll move to the next verse. Kathayasva Mahabhaga Yataham Akhilatmani Krishne Niveshan Hisangam Manastyakshe Kalevaram. O greatly fortunate Shukadeva Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam so that I can place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna. And being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. Constant hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam means a constant association with Krishna. And constant association from Krishna means liberation from all material qualities. I'll use the analogy of the sun. Krishna is like the sun. He dissipates all the material darkness. So the moment the sun comes, darkness disappears. Srimad Bhagavatam heard from professional reciters will not have the same effect. It's like, think about something that looks like milk, but that does not have the same nourishing effect as milk. Can be counter effect. Nowadays, we see a lot of news reports of counterfeit milk, where instead of milk, people are selling paint. So it might look like milk or even taste nice and buttery, but it will not have the same nourishing effect, and it can even kill. Hence the importance of hearing from the right authorities, Prabhujis and Mataritis. Again, Prabhupada is emphasizing in the purport once again the importance of hearing from the right authority. Maharaja Parikshit was a soul realized in absolute truth, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Now, we might think also, Parikshit Maharaj is speaking here out of humility. If you look at closely at the translation, you see that the word is there, being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. That is, Parikshit Maharaj is expressing that as an wish there. Here I'll just continue those points and then I'll come back just to go a bit deeper into the verse. Even before Shukadeva Goswami came, Parikshit Maharaj had actually decided what he wanted to do. He was very clear about that. He knew that after getting cursed by the Brahmana boy, he had another 7 days. And he knew that what he wanted to do. He wanted to relinquish and he wanted to remember Hari. That is what he wanted to do. And so he would have done the same thing, irrespective of whether Shukadeva Goswami arrived or not. So it's very important point that we need to keep in mind, Prabhuji and Mataji, that Parikshit Maharaj is speaking all of this out of humility. Irrespective of whether Shukadeva Goswami would have arrived there or not, Parikshit Maharaj's destination, it would have been the same. That would have not changed. And he would have continued to do what he wanted to do. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, he would have done that. And it's important to note that in the context of Parikshit Maharaj over there, it seems that Shukadeva Goswami's arrival is incidental for Parikshit Maharaj. But importantly, what we need to keep in mind is that for us, this is a great benediction. Because if Shukadeva Goswami had not arrived there, we would have been the most unfortunate people. We would have not received this Bhagavatam there. We would have lost this opportunity to receive Srimad Bhagavatam. Another important point which Prabhupada also is expressing is that we should not use our Anuman when great personalities speak about themselves. So here we should not be misinterpreting this, that Parikshit Maharaj has actually got material qualities. He is a pure devotee. right? And so when he is expressing that he wants to be freed from material qualities and thus relinquish this body, this is out of humility and compassion for everybody else. One should not come to the conclusion that Parikshit Maharaj's mind was fixed on material things. Therefore, one should learn from acharyas. And this point will only come when you are learning in disciplic succession. If we allow our own interpretation to take over and interpret the verse with our own whims and fancies, we'll come to wrong conclusions. And that is the huge risk we run in reading these spiritual texts on our own. What the great personality speaks might indicate their spiritual emotion, but not their spiritual position. As I said, he was already a pure devotee of the Lord. And he's doing this only out of compassion to help others. I'll share this a little later also in the coming verses. But there, Parikshit Maharaj is also not sitting alone. There are other sages also who are there, who are listening. And it's also for their benefit that he's asking these questions. This is a beautiful verse, and on mute itself, everybody can recite it along with me. It's a very important verse in this chapter. Shrinvatah Shraddhaya Nityam Grinatascha Swacheshitam Kalena Nati Dirghena Bhagavan Vashate Hridi. Does any Prabhuji or Mataji also want to recite the verse once more? One Prabhuji and one Mataji.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah, I
Prabhu.
try, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu,
Go ahead,
please.
go ahead.
Go ahead, Prabhu. Giriraj Prabhu, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji. Shrunvata Shraddhaya Nityam Grinatascha Swache Stitam Kalena Nati Dirghena Bhagavan Vasate Hridi.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Any Mataji? One Mataji, please. Who wants to recite?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Shrunvata Shraddhaya Nityam Granatascha Swacheshitam Kalena Nati Dirghena Bhagyavan Vasate Hridi.
Thank you, Mataji. So just I'll also go through the word to word, the synonyms of this particular verse. Shrinvataha is of those who hear. Shraddhaya in earnestness. Nityam is regularly. So listening of those who hear. Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam is of those who hear in earnestness regularly. Grinataha Swachestitam. That is, they take the matter also. Cha is also Swachestitam, seriously by one's own endeavor. Kalena Nati Dirghena is, and it comes in a very short period of time. Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. So Bhagavan is the personality of Godhead. He becomes manifest within one's heart. We'll go into the verse and then first the translation and then the important points and then a little bit of a discussion also. So persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna manifested in their hearts within a short time. Again, I repeat, persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna manifested in the hearts within a short time. So regularly, seriously, God manifests in the heart within a short time. So we have cheap devotees or materialistic devotees of the Lord are very much desirous to see the Lord personally without meeting the requisite qualifications. Such third-grade devotees should know well that material attachment and seeing the Lord face to face cannot go together. It is such a mechanical process that the professional Bhagavatam reciters can do the job on behalf of the third-grade materialistic pseudo-devotee. The professional men are useless in the connection because they are neither self-realized nor interested in the liberation of the audience. They are simply interested in maintaining the material establishment of family attachment and earning some material benefits out of the profession. Maharaja Parikshit had no more than 7 days to live. But for others, Maharaja Parikshit personally recommends that one hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, Nityam, always, by one's own effort and with serious devotion also. That will help one to see the Lord Sri Krishna manifested in one's heart within no time. The pseudo devotee, however, is very anxious to see the Lord according to his whims, not making any serious effort to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and without detachment from material benefit. That is not the way recommended by an authority like Maharaja Parikshit, who heard and benefited by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. I think here in the purport also Prabhupada is emphasizing that we have these, he says, pseudo devotees and professional Bhagavatam reciters. So we have this thing, a lot of people come and recite Bhagavata Sapta, either after the person has passed on or sometimes even during that last phase also. And these people come, they charge huge amounts of money, 2 lakhs, 3 lakhs for even sitting and doing the Bhagavatam reading. And after that, they get their monthly ration from that, and then they are switched off for the rest of the month. So they're neither serious nor they are doing it regularly, right? And they are doing it for a material cause. And then you also have devotees who, are, as he says, cheap devotees or materialistic devotees. A lot are very much desirous to see the Lord personally without meeting the requisite qualifications. So, sometimes some people say that, oh, I had a vision. I saw the Lord, right? And it's not easy to see the Lord. Even when boy Narada, he was meditating. So severe. He was a pure devotee and he was meditating so severely. He got a glimpse and then the Lord disappeared. And then again he started crying and he started calling out so hard with so much of devotion. He was crying. Then he hears the voice of the Lord and he says that this entire life, continue doing this, then you will be able to see me. So, and so it's not easy. It does not come easily, right? That's a bottom line in that. And just also coming back to the verse also, what does Bhagavan Vishate Hridi mean? It means Bhagavan Vishate Hridi means he enters as Bhagavan. But what does this mean? Because in our hearts, we know that Paramatma is already there. Paramatma is already inside us. But then in this verse, why is it being emphasized? Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. Anybody, Prabhujis or Matajis, want to share their thoughts on this? Hare Krishna. Yes, Akinchan, pray Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, no Prabhuji, I don't have any idea, but
No.
yeah, I don't know, Prabhuji, why I still not.
Because we know Paramatma is already there. Why it's being mentioned? The Parikshit Maharaj is saying, Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. Bhagavan will enter the heart. Why?
Hare
So,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Please proceed, Mataji. Yeah.
One thought, Prabhuji,
Yes,
because
Mataji.
Paramatma is like Mahavishnu of Karnakshayi. Vishnu is entering as Paramatma, but Bhagwan is still superior. Bhagwan Krishna is something different from Vishnu.
Yes,
So maybe that
Mataji.
Krishna is entering.
Yes, Mataji. And so, as we have heard in multiple lectures also from all other senior devotees who have shared and lectures, that Paramatma is neutral. So he's sitting there on that branch of the heart and he's watching while the soul is enjoying. Right? And Paramatma is neutral. He does not take a position. Right? And the other thing is that also Paramatma does not attract you to himself because of this neutrality. But Bhagavan is all attractive. Sri Krishna is all attractive. So one who hears and chants with faith, for him remembrance of the Lord will come naturally. Right? So, and that is when Bhagavan enters because of this attraction. So, and then Shravanam, Kirtanam plus faith will lead to smaranam. So, and that's where, he says is about, regularly and seriously. So there's a very an important poem also in from the Jaladuta diaries of Prabhupada. In that there's this poem Krishnataba Punya Habe Bhai. Prabhupada says, he says, today's remembrance of Krishna has come in a very special way. I think it's verse number 9. I'll just read out that verse. It says, Aji se suvidha hala, tumara smarana bhela, boro asha ढाकिलाम ताई हामी तुम्हार नित्य दासा ताई कोरी एतो आशा तुमी बिना अन्य गति नाई. That is, today that remembrance of being with you came to me in a very, very nice way. Feeling great longing, I called for you, O Lord Krishna, only because I am your eternal servant. Do I desire your association so much? Except for you, I have no other refuge. So only because I am your eternal servant do I desire your association so much. Except for you, I have no other refuge. So that's the endeavor. When you make that endeavor, when you take this matter very seriously, that time only Krishna will enter into your heart as Bhagwan. So what does endeavor mean, Prabhuji and Mataji? This is also a very important point on what does endeavor mean. We see here the word swachestitam. What does endeavor mean? Prabhuji and Mataji, anybody? Yes, please unmute yourself and you can speak. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Is it effort, Prabhuji?
Yeah. Sapan Prabhu, yes, it is effort. It is effort.
Efforts to hear.
Seva and sadhana.
Seva and sadhana. But I'm looking for something else. What does that signify? What is endeavor? It is effort, but there's something about that effort. This endeavor, it is not natural for that person. And you don't have a natural taste for it. That is the chesta. So if you already have a taste for it, then that is no longer an endeavor. But this is, you don't have a taste for it. Right. And we see this in every walk of life also, right? Like, for example, when we are starting a new task or we are starting a new job, right? And we don't know anything about it, or a new game, a new sport, right? That is not easy. That effort is not easy because it's not natural. But then over a period of time, once you keep striving, then it becomes more natural because you have developed a stage. So till when does one have to endeavor? And we need to endeavor till we go to the Ruchi stage. So even at the stage of Nishtha, taste is not there, Prabhujis and Matajis. Let's keep that in mind. So it's only when you reach that Ruchi stage only, taste will be there. So let's not be in this illusion that taste for activity has to be developed for us to perform the activity. We don't need to develop taste to perform these activity. For example, even a lot of the other, sometimes we have so many biases and filters with us that we don't want to do a few things, or we don't want to do, for example, sometimes we have our own preferences that, I need to listen to this or I need to only read this, right? And taste is not needed for us to develop, for us to perform a particular activity. Taste is a reward for steady practice despite not having taste. So we might not have that taste, but if we steadily continue to endeavor, taste will be the reward for that steady practice. And I had mentioned that at the stage of also Nishtha, there is no taste yet. Taste has not yet come in Nishtha. We have to progress to that next stage of Ruchi. So how elevated is this stage of Nishtha? And this Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has said that Nishtha is endowed with the quality of steadiness or non-movement. Talks about the there are 5 persistent obstacles, to obtain this steadiness. And this kind of tells you also how difficult it is for us to get to that stage of Nishtha, Prabhujis and Matajis. So the 5, and when I was looking at it, it looked like, I have almost all the 5. Laya. The first one is Laya, which is sleep. Second one is Vikshepa or distraction. So when I'm chanting or when I'm doing other thing also, a lot of distractions are there always. Pratipatti, which is not Laya or Vikshepa, but still I don't want to perform that action. Still there is a sluggishness in me. Then the fourth one is Kashaya, which is the tendency towards bad habits, either before Krishna consciousness or after Krishna consciousness also. So sometimes even after we get into Krishna consciousness, we may develop some habits which may not be conducive for us to make that progress to that stage of Nishtha. And last is the Rasaswad, which is the taste for material enjoyment. And what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura says is that the absence of these obstacles indicates Nishtha. Right? And that's when Krishna will immediately manifest. That's when you will see Bhagavan. When you have all completely done away with all these obstacles, that is when he manifests. And that's what Vainarada experienced. But, and that's where Prabhupada in his purport, he's saying that materialistic devotees, a lot are very much desirous to see the Lord personally without meeting requisite qualification. So there is a lot of endeavor that is needed for us to progress to that stage of Nishtha. So transition from Anartha Nivritti stage, which is the starting phase, right, wherein there is even no endeavor that is happening, to Nishtha is solely dependent on one's chesta or endeavor. That is the Swachestitam. In Anartha Nivritti, that is the Anishta Bhajana stage, you are not endeavoring, you are very lax because there is no stage. In Nishtha stage, even though there is no taste, you are still endeavoring. That is the change that happens. And for that, these 5 obstacles need to go away. That is why we also keep repeating when we are, for example, when we are chanting, we keep reminding about the offenses in chanting the name also, and which is also one of them is to be attentive and not get distracted. So Swacheshta is the entrance to the realm of taste, which is Ruchi. Let's not think that Ruchi will magically land in our laps and we'll suddenly acquire that taste. That taste is not going to come to you like that. It's going to come through that effort. And of course, Lilananda Prabhu in his earlier classes also mentioned that, we all in your spiritual bank account is always there. Whatever we are acquiring in our spiritual bank account in this life or in our past life does not go back to zero. Unlike our material bank account, which goes back to zero immediately when the soul transmigrates to another body, when the jiva transmigrates. But the spiritual bank account will always be there and there will be a starting point. And while we might not be displaying that there is that one spark will come and then the Bhakti Lata Bij will all start growing all of a sudden. So sometimes also we need to be careful that we are not judging other people outside by their conduct, because you never know. These people might have spiritual bank account also, but for some reason they have got stuck here in this repeated birth and death cycle and are trying to visit some other of their desires. It's a matter that spark of bhakti comes and then suddenly you will see that, they start blooming. But again, taste will not magically land in our laps. We need that chesta has to be there, endeavor has to be there, and that will be the entrance to the realm of taste. This is also a very, very nice verse. I'll recite it, but please just recite it in parallel along with me only. Pravishta karna randhrena swana bhava saroruham dunoti shamalam krishna salilasya yathasharat.
Prabhuji, I think screen frozen. I don't see.
Frozen, Prabhu? Oh,
it has come now, Prabhuji.
It has come, Prabhu? Okay,
Yeah.
Prabhu. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Any Prabhuji or Mataji want to recite this verse? Please, one Prabhuji and one Mataji, please.
Yeah, Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhuji. Pravishta karna randrina swana bhava saroruham नूनोति शमलं कृष्णः सलीलस्य यथा शरत्.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you. Yes, Akinchana Priya Prabhu, please proceed.
Yeah, sir. प्रविष्टकर्णरन्ध्रेण श्वानं भावसरोरुहं धुनोति समलं कृष्ण शीलालस्य यथा शरत्.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Beautiful, beautiful prayer, Prabhu. Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhu. And I'll just also read the synonyms word to word translation, Prabhu, because it's a very nice shloka. Pravishtaha, thus being entered. Karnarandhrena, through the holes of the ears. So Pravishta Karnarandhrena is thus being entered through the holes of the ears. Swanam Bhava Saraha Ruham, according to one's liberated position. So according to one's liberated position, Bhava Saraha Ruham is constitutional relationship, the lotus flower. So it enters through the ears and he seats himself on the lotus flower of relationship or emotion. Dhunoti Shamalam Krishnaha. So he says cleanses, Dhunoti is cleanses, Shamalam is all the material qualities like lust, anger, avarice and hankering. Krishna is Lord Krishna, of course, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Shalilasya Yatha Sharad. So it's comparing it. Shalilasya is reservoirs of water. Yatha is as it were. Sharad is the autumn season. So it's comparing it to the rain that comes in the Sharat in the autumn season, that is after the monsoon season, how the waters in the reservoirs get cleared. So I'll go to the full translation now. This is the sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, that is the Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee and sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. Now, in the previous verse, we were hearing about how Parikshit Maharaj is talking about hearing with faith, seriously, regularly, and through from the authorized spiritual master, right? That is when Krishna will enter the heart. So he gave the condition of when he enters the heart. Here he's telling about, he enters the heart through the ear, and what he does is he of the self-realized devotee, and he sits on this lotus flower of relation, which is the lotus flower of emotion. It's so soft. The lotus flower is so soft. It's compared to that. So your emotions are compared to that, which is so soft. He sits on that flower, and what does Bhagavan do? The moment he enters and comes and sits on that lotus flower, he cleanses the dust of material association. He's like the sun, what I had mentioned. The sun comes and all the darkness, it gets dissipated, such as lust, anger, and hankering. And he compares it to autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. So when the monsoon starts, we see lots of pools of muddy water. But when the monsoon settles and is about to go away, you have these small droplets start coming. At that time, the water starts clearing up in the reservoirs, and it's been compared to that. Some of the important points from the Prabhupada's purports is kind of summarized over there, and says the path of jnana, ashtanga, etc. cannot destroy the desire to commit sinful reaction. So again, it's only bhakti and progressing to that pure bhakti stage, so that Krishna enters into the heart, that will destroy this entire material association. Without that, it's not going to happen. And the analogy is used of burning a forest. So when the forest is burnt, sometimes you have the forest fires in the summer, or even as such. I was in the year end, I had gone to this Kaziranga, and there was huge tall elephant grass. That was there, and there they were telling me that, look here, now it's the monsoon is over, now the grass has grown, now it's all dried up. He told me that February, March, sir, is the best time to come when you can spot the animal, because we will burn the grass. When the monsoon comes again, what happens when the rains come back? The grass goes back again. Similarly, like the bamboo grows back. right? So it is not a permanent solution. So jnana, ashtanga and paths cannot destroy the desire to commit sinful reactions in full. They can stop for some period of time, and we have seen it. Great munis, sages have fallen down, right? So that desire will come back the moment there is that little one drop of rain that comes. But bhakti is compared to a blazing fire that burns the firewood thoroughly to ashes, right? They say similarly bhakti burns all the karma, aprabdha karma, and the prabdha karma is described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu as a huge mountain, right? So it's not easy to burn that, but bhakti is like that blazing fire that will burn. In one of the lectures also I heard about bhakti being compared to the digestive fire. Now, why the digestive fire, right? Because digestive fire is not like a blazing fire. It does not, it's not carpet bombing. It is discriminative. What does the digestive fire do? The important things that are the nourishing parts, it takes in and puts it in. The waste, the things get pushed out, right? So the digestive part, bhakti is something like that. It burns the material part of the subtle body and activates the spiritual part, unlike other parts which don't activate the spiritual part. So the other parts, what are they missing? Why does that grass grow back? Because that spiritual part has not been activated. It is a gradual step-by-step process, and it automatically takes care of liberation, which is a byproduct. So if you have reached that stage of bhakti, liberation comes automatically. You don't need to go. And this we have also seen in the Bhagavad Gita in that ladder, wherein, it's like, the one path is go on that ladder, and the other one is you go directly take a lift and you go up, right? So taking the path of bhakti ensures that everything else gets covered. Further mentioned the purport that yogis and jnanis also cannot purify or deliver. But he says, in the starting point of the purport, he says, a single pure devotee of the Lord can deliver all the fallen souls of the world. And that's how lucky we are to be in this path under ISKCON, under Srila Prabhupada's guidance with all his disciples and all the senior devotees here guiding us. Hopefully I'm confident we stand a much better chance that we'll all be going back soon, back home to Godhead. By sincere efforts to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, one realizes his constitutional relationship with the Lord. They become so powerful because they sincerely followed the Bhagavatam principles by regularly hearing and worshipping. By such actions, the accumulated material lusts, etc., become cleansed by the personal endeavor of the Lord within the heart. Personal endeavor of the Lord within the heart. That's a very important point, Prabhuji and Mataji. Here the Lord is taking ownership. Once he has entered into your heart, Prabhuji and Mataji, he is going to take personal charge. Please remember that. The Lord is always within the heart of the living being, but he becomes manifested by one's devotional service. So then what happens once all these material contaminations are cleansed? And that is what Parikshit Maharaj says in the next verse. How beautifully he is exciting and inspiring his spiritual master to speak. Prabhuji and Mataji, please see this. No better example than this. We'll recite this verse also. Please, we'll follow the same thing method where we'll recite in parallel, and then one Prabhuji and one Mataji can also recite this verse. Dhautatma Purusha Krishna Padamulam na munchati Mukta Sarva Parikleshaha Panta Sva Sharanam Yatha. Hare Krishna. One Prabhuji and one Mataji, please also recite this verse, please.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Mahoday.
Gautarma Krishna Paramula Munchati